Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode. It's not What's Up in Archaeology as normally. Today we're going to talk about culture with two distinguished guests. We have Goodfella and we have Skeptor. And we're going to talk about the whole encompassing notion of what culture is. And there's a definition I have been pushing, and I haven't seen it anywhere, so I think I developed it. And it's that culture is everything that can be passed on to the offspring that is not biological. And that encompasses everything. And it's not exclusive to humans, by the way. Primates have it, cetaceans have it, that's the whales and the dolphins, and some birds even have it. So basically, that is what we're going to talk about. And I don't really need to introduce these two awesome people because they are much, much more popular than I am. So, how are you guys?
Fine.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for having me on.
what do you think of this question? What do you guys think culture basically is?
Well, when you said there, it was a good description. Something you hand down to your offspring. It's not biological, but I think it can be passed on to people who aren't your offspring as well. You know.
Yes, of course. Yes. When I say offspring, it's like a parent teaches the child, etc. But yes, but it influences everything. The first thing you teach, for example, the first thing you teach in humans and your offspring is to talk. Isn't it correct? That's culture. Actual talking is culture.
So
Then
I,
what?
I don't want to be a dickhead, but do you think that culture is sometimes or many times derived from biological imperatives?
For example.
For example, if men and women have certain biological imperatives, then that would affect the culture that we live in. For example, we live in mostly, I don't want to say patriarchies or men-dominated societies, but societies where most people who are leaders and dominating are men, and not matriarchies. And is that a derivative of evolutionary psychology, for example?
Of course, it could be, yes, because culture evolves as biology does. Um, we have a patriarchal, in general, a patriarchal culture, in my opinion, mostly due to agriculture, which was developed in about the 7th millennium BC, 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. And that required much more massive labour that the women just could not keep up. And possibly that is derived from that, of course, yes.
Well, I think I thought about the hypothesis that people are putting out there, and of course, it's not my idea, but it makes sense to me that because it is evolved into a dimorphic species where natural selection makes it so that men are more inclined to be more dominant than women.
Yes, yes, we
And
see
that,
that.
of course, reflects in culture very much. Now, when you talk with the feminists, they will say it's all socially constructed and there is no biological imperative to that. I think that's it. That's a result of biological imperatives, natural selection.
I would put that culture actually influenced natural selection in humans mostly. Sexual selection, that is culture.
Okay,
It's not
so that's a
biological.
good point. That's a good point. You're talking about a positive feedback loop, which means if you have like this is something I heard in a documentary from that guy who made the documentaries about the gender, a Norwegian gender paradox, and he did another documentary about nature versus nurture, and one of them said that one of those psychologists or sociologists, I can't remember, He said that if you have, for example, a kid who has who is very talented in music, for example, right? He has a great talent for music, and it's something biological. He was born like this, and as a result, he would befriend people who are more similar to him. He would not befriend, I don't know, jockeys or like people who are more technical, or people that don't. He would probably befriend people who have an inclination to music, and that would become his environment and his culture, and that culture would affect him eventually.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So it's a nature creates an environment which feedbacks into his nature again.
But if you were to throw everything into the hat that counts as culture, and then decide what biology affects, because the things that biology affects, I would say weather has as much to do with culture as biology does. I mean, like if you throw, say, fashion, music, architecture, all these different things are part of culture. These are all different around the world.
course.
Like one of the biological things could be fashion when it comes to, say, hair, for example. Like black people and white people have different hair. They just do. So, like maybe that could become a fashion trend in a country like Jamaica, where it can't come a fashion trend here because we've got different hair. So different things like that could. But you'd have to throw everything in the hat first and pick out the ones biology directly affects. Does biology affect music, or does it affect architecture, for example?
And I can add to that I noticed a correlation, only a correlation, between how hot the weather is or how cold it is to the culture. I don't know, state of mind, not state of mind, but people who live in very warm places are, it's like they are more loud, more, more, I don't know even how to say it. Aggressive.
Flamboyant.
I don't
Well,
know, not aggressive, more aggressive.
Aggressive.
I mean, people in
Aggressive.
yeah,
Aggressive's a good point, because they used to say, there was a saying here that people in London, there would be more gang crime in London if it wasn't raining all the time. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. If you go to like Los Angeles, where it's always sunny, people are outside all the time. Whereas here, it's raining quite a lot. People don't hang around street corners all the time because it's raining, and there'd probably be more gang crime if the weather was better. And maybe there's something in that.
I mean, take Finland, for example. It's so cold that people don't go out in Canada most of the year outside, so they don't interact, and they become more complacent. I don't know. I mean,
Well, Portugal's quite warm, and we sort of don't have that much violence.
Portuguese people are passionate. I think the word I'm looking for is more passionate. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. We're the southern part. I'm from. So you guys know, I'm from the extreme north of Portugal, so I'm more in the Celtic area of the Iberian Peninsula. We have many areas, and
But maybe I'm wrong.
possibly my area.
Maybe that's just an idea. Yeah.
But then
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that the weather as well could affect the food. Food's a big part of culture. Some foods you get in cold countries, some you get in hot countries, some you get in wet countries. It just depends.
Yes,
And
but yes,
definitely the geographics is reflected in culture very much. If you're living in the mountains, it's different when you're living in a cold place, warm place. Definitely, it has an effect. It can be clothing. It can be if you live at the seashore, like it can affect the songs. If you're a seafaring nation, country,
Portugal was.
exactly. So you eat a lot of fish in your food. It depends on when you say culture, it's a very broad term. You need to maybe break it down into categories and then discuss it.
Yeah, but you can break it down. That's the good thing about my premise. After that, you can break it down infinitely to people who only wear Reeboks, for example, shoes.
Yeah, but that's very microscopic.
Exactly. That's that, but still culture. That's the good
Yeah.
thing about it. It is still culture, and we see a lot of,
Wearing shoes without laces.
for example, that is their culture. That is actually their culture.
That's
But
not a
it's-
culture in and of itself. It's just
no.
one aspect of culture.
Yes, but it's still a culture of people who only wear shoes without laces, for example. It's still.
I'll tell you a culture thing that I've noticed. Again, I'm talking about the weather again, right? Where I live, it rains quite a lot, and there's certain shops that they come from America, you know, big brand shops, right? And when you go in, they give you a brown paper bag, which is completely useless in Glasgow, because as soon as it rains, you don't have a bag anymore. You know what I mean? You need a plastic carrier bag because
Yes.
it's raining. And that's a kind of culture clash where they come over here with their shops, which are welcome, but they don't think it through. You know, they don't completely think it through. And then the next thing you know, you've got a bag and all your clothes are falling out or whatever you've bought because the bag's wet. It's one of those silly little things.
Yeah, we are into recycling in Portugal. Of course, we are good followers of the European Union, like idiots. But we also are bad students because they introduced. They tried to eliminate plastic bags, those throwaway ones. So they put a tax on those really thin ones. So shop owners would buy the thicker ones, which have no tax. So that's what they do now, and they paid more. So the shop owners were getting more. They were selling them for more, but they cost the same to make, and so the shop owners are getting rich just on those plastic bags.
Well, because they have to charge now in Britain. You know, that's the law in Britain now. Where
Same here, yeah.
yeah, you have to charge like 5 pence minimum or something like that.
Yep.
So every shop you go in, you get a carrier bag. It's 5 pence, and a lot of these shops used to give you them for free, but now it's like they need to charge you. You know,
It's same thing here. We have the same law here.
Do you think it helps though? Do you think it actually helps?
Nothing. No.
No.
Because you still get the same amount.
When you go to the supermarket and do a 1,000 shekel buy, and then you have to add like 3 shekels for the bags, you don't really
Notice
see
it,
that.
yeah.
You don't really feel that.
Nope. We've established this for humans. Like everyone now, everyone loves pizza. I think.
Most people, I guess.
Yeah, most people. A lot of people. Most people. Yeah. Except I won't do the meme. You guys know what I'm going to talk about, so I won't touch the meme, the pizza meme. But
With the pineapple one.
yes. Let's not go there because that is people just get so much triggered on one side or the other.
It's like Americans with guns and abortion.
Even
And the rest of humanity with pizza, pineapple pizza.
I think even worse. I think it's
Although
even worse.
I've never tried a pizza with an abortion, but I'd be willing to give it a try.
Exactly.
Abortion pizza.
But food as especially now in the 20th, 21st century that we are now, it is just everywhere. We get food from every country, everywhere. That is something that spread because of humans naturally interacting. That's how culture is spread.
And entrepreneurship, not just.
No, exactly.
We had Chinese food in Israel way before even a single Chinese person ever landed in Israel. I guess.
Yeah.
Because people went to China, saw the food, or they went to the United States, to Chinatown somewhere, and they loved the food, brought it back to Israel, opened the restaurant.
Well, you're here in Britain right now. I don't know if you've seen that HSBC advert with the guy out of the IT crowd. I don't know if you've seen that, where he's talking about Britain. You know, he's talking about Britain, and he says all our heroes are Brazilian or Argentinian, talking about football players. We watch our football games on Korean TVs. We eat Indian food and Chinese food, and he's going through. Our best friends are like you know, Spanish and all kind of different types of dogs, and it's quite interesting that all the different like cultures that we adopt. You know, we take all the good parts from the cultures. We don't take the bad parts, but we take the good parts. And I even noticed that, by the way. No, I'd never noticed anybody pointing this out, but you know, when the North Koreans, remember the cheerleaders?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yes.
they were all wearing Adidas. And I thought that was quite funny. I thought that was like a, you know, they were against capitalism in North Korea, but yet they were all wearing Adidas. And I just thought that's pretty strange.
You know that you're saying that Russians have like an Adidas culture. They love wearing Adidas.
The tracksuit.
Yeah, the tracksuits. Yeah, there's a word in Russian that describes a certain type of people, like a culture of people called gupniks. Have you ever heard of that?
Gupniks?
I've not.
Yeah.
Is that a gang or something like a?
No, a gupnik is like a low life, like a guy who drinks and smoke weed, like a small time criminal.
All right.
And they usually squat down and sit like.
I've seen them. I've seen them. That's the way they sit, with either with their
Yes.
knees bent, squatting. But I've seen. And they
Exactly.
wear the
That's
kind
the
of
gupniks.
the old man hats.
Yeah.
The old man flat hats. Flat caps. whatever
That
they're
I
called.
don't know, but usually they smoke when they do that, and they wear Adidas. Now, real gupniks don't actually wear Adidas. They buy low grade tracksuits, and they take yellow stripes and just sew the yellow stripes to make it look like an Adidas. But yeah, that was a tangent. Sorry.
No, it's not. That's culture. That is a culture.
Yeah.
Not cultural aspect, something in the culture. Someone, Davey from in this chat said they're in the UK, they're called chavs. In Australia,
Neds up here. We call them
Neds.
Neds. Aye, Neds.
So in Australia, they are bogans.
Ned stands for non-educated delinquent. That's what it stands for. Ned.
We have a word for that as well, but it's something very different than what I described. It's called als in Hebrew, which is actually an Arab word for a pimp. And but in Israel it became a slang word for low time. How do you call it?
Low-level delinquents.
Low-level delinquent. Usually they have a very Middle Eastern culture ingrained into them. They wear like, oddly enough, they are very much like black people from the hoods. They wear like gold chains, big golden chains on their neck and on their hands. They call them gourmets. I don't know why. They have the name of their mom etched in the gold. They listen to Middle Eastern music, usually Arabic music, and they hate Arabs. The funniest thing is that they are very much like Arabic people from the Middle East, but they're like the most right-wing people in Israel.
That is cultural appropriation of the American black culture, though. The chains and that.
No. It's the other way around, man.
Is it?
No, it is because this is the culture that was brought by Jews who came from the Middle East, and that is Middle Eastern culture from a long time ago, even before the black culture in the United States.
Wow. See, that is exactly that's how culture evolves and moves. It's not a monolith like the SJWs and the feminists and the left-wing loonies, the loony left, I call them. They want to make culture, certain aspects of culture, monoliths. Europeans, because I don't believe that I know there are no human races. There are human ethnic groups, and each area has its own hereditary characteristics because they evolved in that area, but we are still one human race.
Well, that is of course is a subjective term, race. You know, I've listened to a lot of race debates. The one who say there are races, there are one that say that there aren't any races, but this is something that very rarely that I agree with JF, if you know who that is.
I debated him. Yes, I know.
Yeah, so he said something correct. He said, it's all in the way you just define it. You can define it in very broad strokes, like skin color, genetics, and that determines skin. And then you can break it down into much more detailed, but it's all subjective. Eventually.
Well, it's one. We already have the word. It doesn't have to be used race. It's called both. He describes heredity. And he goes from 60 to 600 races of humans. That is absurd. Because a race is a subspecies of a species. I know I'm not going to have this monetized because YouTube's cunts. But Homo sapiens is the species. Sapiens, us, are the subspecies. Homo sapiens Neanderthalensis was another race of humans. Homo sapiens denisovans was another race of humans. They all had culture, obviously, and they intermingled, not biologically, and appears in Neanderthals also had art, so that is a culture that may have intermingled with us when we came over to Europe with modern humans. Because in Spain, I talked about it on Monday, that there are a couple of caves that appear to have been cave paintings that appear to have been made by Neanderthals, and overlaid on that are modern human paintings, drawings, and so on. And so that's what basically a race is. But we're not going to talk about race. We're talking about culture.
Just remind me at the end of the two things at the end of the stream. One of them, I'll send you a link to a guy who did a sketch in English, mostly in English, talking about the Arsim in Israel, the NIDS or whatever.
Yeah.
And he did it like David Attenborough show, where he talks like he brought a British guy talking like David Attenborough, that watches and studies the Arsim in the wild. So it's very funny. You can see the archetype. Second thing is a lot of people are asking me questions in the chat, and I'm not answering because I want to stay on topic. But maybe we can at the end have a small Q&A.
Exactly. Yes.
I have a quick question. Just because you mentioned Homo sapiens, right? Is it true that that's the singular? If you're talking about one individual, it's still called a Homo sapiens. That's not plural. Is that right?
I think it's Homo sapien for a single.
That's what I don't know. I thought the full term was Homo sapiens, and that wasn't actually plural.
The term is Homo sapiens. That's biological, archaeological, whatever, anthropological. Homo sapiens, sapiens, knowledge, man.
So singular would be sapien then.
Sapien.
I've heard the term spoken like this. I'm not, English is not my language, but that I've heard Homo sapien.
You can. Yes, you can. There's no problem saying it. You can even describe modern humans, just say Homo sapien. There's nothing wrong with that. Because we're Homo sapiens sapiens. There's absolutely nothing.
You're being very inclusive right now.
Of course, to all humans. Well, modern humans anyway.
No, when you said it, there's nothing wrong with that. No.
Of course not.
We accept. Yeah, we accept their pronouns. Okay.
Why should there be the people? Oh, damn it! People get so their knickers get so tight from words. Words are awesome. I love words. I can speak words in Portuguese, Spanish, English. That's my main language, English. I can speak enough French to get anywhere I want. I can speak enough Italian to get where I want, and I can not get insulted in German, Greek, Yugoslav, etc. So I know language is awesome. All languages. I wish I knew Hebrew. I wish I knew Latin. I wish I knew Greek, but I don't know. I'm too stupid to learn those languages, unfortunately. and I would love to learn them. I would love to appropriate that culture. See what I mean? I would love to. And people get so upset because of one word. And you, good fella, have done enough videos to know that. You've shown me enough videos to see that. And it's just stupid. We are destroying human culture, because humans aren't the only ones that, as I said in the start, humans aren't the only ones that have culture. All the primates have culture. Bonobos, one of our hominid cousins. We are hominins, they are hominids, the great apes, etc. They have their own culture. They are not as sexually dimorphic as say chimpanzees and us, because they split off slightly different way, and maybe their culture moved them to not be so sexually dimorphic, because instead of violence, they resolve their differences using sex, for example. All of them, males, females, etc. Now, we are more like the chimpanzees, which are actually about 95% genetically similar to us. If you want to go into the genetics, but we're not going to talk about genetics. We're going to talk about the culture. They are developing tools. They fish for termites using sticks which they fashion.
Mm-hmm.
That is mirrored in Australopithecines and before them. They actively hunt other smaller primates, the monkeys, because they are apes. They strategize. They are cannibals, like all humans have been. And when I say humans, I'm going back to Homo erectus and Homo habilis. Our lineage, Homos, has always practiced some form of cannibalism. They also do that, not towards their own group, but to outside groups. That is a culture. Mm-hmm. See what I mean?
It's not. You're saying it's not instinct. It's yeah.
Yeah, they learn that. There's an example of the Japanese macaques. It was an experiment that is actually still going on. The Japanese macaques are a species. I think you know from watching. I think you guys have known from watching David Attenborough. Those monkeys that in an island off Japan, there's a small island. They have a reserve for those monkeys, the Japanese macaques. They used to feed them. They used to throw grains onto the sand, and the first generation would just pick each grain off the sand. But then, and in the 50s, an intrepid female grabbed a bunch of sand and seeds, took it to the water, dropped it in the water, and then scooped up the floating seeds, which also salted them, so adding flavor. Some younger macaques observed her, what she was doing, and imitated her. And guess what? Today, all of those macaques from that island do that. They drop the seeds, we drop the seeds there to feed them. They all do that. That's learned action. That has nothing to do with biology.
Hmm.
And
interesting.
Yeah, that is why my premise that is not just humans, that culture is not biological, but it's passed on, because they learn from their elders, their parents, to the children in a group, and then it expands. The groups splinter off, but they maintain that knowledge and split and etc.
So if to sum up, some elements of culture are learned from experience, some forms of culture are as a result of your demographics, and some are a result of your biology.
Well, I still can't see any aspect of culture that is directly linked to our biology.
I just gave you an example.
But that possibly, if you go back enough, like I said, it's a learned thing. If you go back enough, it was started from learning. did sexual selection come from culture, or did biology, like I gave you the sort of a counter example, the sexual selection.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's try this. Let's say that there are two tribes of Homo
We'll use
sapiens.
humans. We'll use humans.
Humans.
Humans. Yes, yeah.
Prehistoric humans. One of them, one of those tribes develops a culture where men go to fight, and the other one, men and women go to fight 50-50, like equally. But as a result of natural selection, tribe A wins and tribe B is demolished. And certain, maybe even biological traits are passed on that strengthen. I think it comes, no, I think it starts with biology, and I'll tell you why. Because if you have a tribe, why would tribe A be sending more men than women? So if you think, I'm thinking about gynocentrism as a genetic a mutation, right? People, some people are more inherently empathic, some people are less empathic inherently. And people who are more empathic to men, probably in such a tribe, that tribe would survive less, have a lesser chance of survival. So you start with a genetic mutation that affects behavior. It could be even hormonal, you know, because hormones affect your, not just your mood, but the way you think, the way you process information, the way you express yourself. So let's take an example of a recent example, soy boys, what we call soy boys right now.
Exactly. Yes.
Men who have a low levels of testosterone are more docile than men who have higher levels of testosterone, and that results in different cultures. Different cultures then are strengthened via natural selection, and those genes with those that give you, that have men with more testosterone, they prevail. So I do think it comes essentially from biological flukes like this. That, and you get a lot of flukes, and the ones who are more fitted for their environment, they're the ones that survive, and the culture is of course reflected in that.
Yes, that could be true. Do you want to say something before I go on and try to answer that, good fella?
No, I think it was covered pretty well by both the others. I was just listening, not really having to add.
Okay. How far in evolution do you want me to go, Skepta? I can go to Australopithecines if you want.
It doesn't really matter, I think, how far you go. What I'm trying to get at.
No, I know. Yes, I know. Your point is absolutely valid. And you started off saying that one group, basically, to summarize, one group replacing another, correct?
Yeah, because there is a certain biological
Biology,
element,
traits. Okay.
certain biological element that affects the way you think and behave, and that is preferable to the environment.
So we go back to Australopithecines. We know that they were the first ones to eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now meat is it's like a turbo boost to the brain, mostly to the brain, because you guys know that the brain is the organ of the body that consumes the most amount of energy. Right. Now, Australopithecines would scavenge the hunts of both the big cats, the dogs, and the hyenas, etc. They were opportunistics. Now that gave them a little boost of intelligence. That is biology, but the fact that they actively scavenge, that is culture. Someone had to learn how to scavenge.
But in order for someone to actually scavenge, they first need to be able to process meat.
Well, primates actually, we do, especially the bigger, the higher apes, chimpanzees, and not just chimpanzees, that pan troglodytes, the chimpanzee, the big ones, because bonobos are also chimpanzees. They're the lower ones. They process meat easily. Some baboons process
Why?
meat, and they are.
Why? How
they
come?
Are,
How come?
it's just the primate biology itself. It
Isn't
can.
it? Isn't it more because they have to rather than because they want to?
Exactly. That's
Survival.
where I'm getting at.
No. The chimpanzees don't have to. They are omnivores. The bears are omnivores.
But they became omnivores because I'm just guessing because I'm not a biologist or anything like that. I'm just working on guesses right now. On my own common sense, that you became an omnivore eventually and not herbivore because that was the food that was most available or much more available, and the ones who were herbivores in a place where you have animals but not a lot of herbs around, I don't know, then I don't know. Really, I don't know.
That is. Go on. You can.
But the point is that it's a combination of the environment and biology and natural selection that gave you a certain imperative to be more like X or more like Y, and if you're more like X, you're more likely to survive. And then, of course, that feeds into your culture, which again has like a closed loop mechanism that feeds back.
Yes, it does. That's exactly what I was going to do. But omnivores, humans aren't the only ones. Chimpanzees aren't the only ones. Pigs are also omnivores. Bears are also omnivores. And what else?
Dogs.
No, dogs are basically carnivores. No, dogs are carnivores. Dogs, cats, felines are carnivores.
Yeah. Okay, right.
No, they're exclusive. No. I'm trying to think of. I think they are the main omnivores that I can think of now, and it's just their
that's
biology.
Strange because I know dogs that eat everything.
Yes. So, yes, they do. Yes, I have one that does eat everything as well. Yes.
I mean rice and
rice, spaghetti, etc. Yeah,
vomit, anything.
Exactly. But primates are not just they developed from a insectivorous, really past ancestor who only ate insects. Now, of course, the split that just took we don't need to get back there, but our omnivorous diet, that chimpanzees and humans are the last ones of our group. Well, but as I said, some baboons also eat some meat and insects and so on. Eating insects is being a meat eater, by the way. It's not plants. So that is why the higher primates already are primed to be omnivorous almost by default. We don't have a big appendix like most of the vegetable eaters. Vegetable eaters. The herbivores. That's because they needed to process the cellulose of the plants, but we don't. We have a small appendix. In humans, it is useless. Same as gorillas. Even same in most of the primates, they're just small appendixes.
The appendix isn't completely useless.
No. I'm just saying it's useless for our digestive process, not.
Aye.
Yeah. It is no. It is in fact where it holds a digestive flora in case we have some bad experience with our digestive tract. But yeah, so the omnivorous part, the Australopithecines, would have. We don't know how our earlier ones were, if they were just grub.
But you know what? Let's get to the point.
The point that the point is that the meat eating, that scavenging, was most likely a cultural learned thing. Some like the macaques in Japan, some one had to learn it and then it passed.
Of course,
on to
but
the
there
others.
wasn't a biological imperative to why you would even go and scavenge in the first place.
No, it was opportunistic. I'm not saying it was a biological imperative. It was opportunistic, but then they learned and it just snowballed. See what I mean? The
Yeah,
evolution.
I mean, I
snowballed.
understand,
Yeah.
but because they needed meat to eat, then they found
No,
ways
they
to get
never.
it.
They did not need meat. That was that. They most likely would have got meat, say once a month, for example.
You
Or
did, yeah, are you saying that
Maybe it's
they
it's a,
decided they
Yes.
decided to eat meat, but it wasn't necessity? Because there's
No.
no.
people in
I think
Africa,
I'll
there's
split
people in
hairs.
Africa right now who make burgers out of flies and eat them because they have to. Nobody wants to eat a fly burger.
Yeah,
Do
but
you know what I
now
mean?
it's different. Yeah, no, but different is now different. Now it's different. Before in hunter, we were hunter gatherers for 95% of our evolution.
Okay, let me
Okay.
rephrase it because it's probably
No, you
a
don't have to rephrase
semantic
it.
a
Yeah,
semantic thing. But they don't need meat, but they need to eat, and meat is one of the elements that are available to eat, and it's very good. It's very tasty. So, because you're biologically motivated to eat something which is fatty, salty, sugary, right?
it
And
was
it's more
at this.
nutritious. It's more
Yes, it's
nutritious,
yes,
and
it's more
so you have
nutritious.
a biological imperative to try to look for that kind of food. So you develop a way to find it.
No, it's not a biological imperative. It's a cultural imperative.
I
Now
don't think so. I
it is
think
in terms of hunter gatherers. It is if you're an omnivore, you only occasionally eat meat.
doesn't matter how
Bears,
occasion.
bears eat 90%, or I think it's 70% um, plants. Pigs eat 80%
But
plants
why?
and so on.
But why? But why do they eat 70%? There is a reason for that, and it's not. I don't think it's
Because
culture.
meat is not available to them
Yes,
regularly.
it's not a culture thing.
I,
It's an environmental thing. It's a
to them it
natural.
is, yes, but to them
Yes.
it is, but to us it's not.
It
It
used to
is a
be in the
culture thing.
past. Right now, maybe not. I don't know. But in the past, when we were as developed,
Australopithecines, yes.
yeah, as developed as monkeys or as chimpanzees, yeah,
That
in
was
those
just a
times, you would eat everything that you would able to find, and
exactly.
if you could
Then
find something which tastes good, then you'll have a biological imperative to go and look for it because
cultural, yes.
not cultural.
It's still cultural. It's still cultural. Uh,
Do we like sugar because it's a cultural thing, or do we like sugar because our biology tells us to consume a lot of
sugar,
sugar? Yeah,
sugar is only a substance that has been consumed by humans in the past 2,000 years.
but there is
I would say.
fructose. I'm talking about all kinds of
Plants, fruits,
lactose.
yes.
Yeah,
Fruits and lactose, yes, but that's yes, exactly, yes, sugar. But habilis, Homo habilis, he was the first one to actively uh, uh, find the meat. The Australopithecines were occasional eaters.
yeah,
That's what I
but
was trying to get.
what
Yeah.
we're stuck in a loop. I'm trying to get to a certain point. What I'm trying to say is there is a reason we like salty things and sugary things and fatty things because they are more nutritious. This is something which is biological.
Yes.
We are biologically programmed to respond well to those kinds of things, and we are biologically uh, programmed to respond badly to things that taste bad,
Yes. Exactly. Yes, we
like
are. Yes.
bitter, and that is because of
Bitter.
natural selection, and that of course is reflective because you want, oh, you taste something like something good, like something fatty, like meat, and then you say, okay, I want to get more meat because that tastes good. That tastes good because that's how my biology works, and so you develop a method to find more meat.
Yes, but now cooked meat is better and more nutritious than
Yeah,
raw
but
meat.
now you're just
No, no,
trying
no,
to
no,
have
no, 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 no. I'm still just continuing.
Okay.
Your point is absolutely yes. It's exactly correct. Uh, we have biological tastes. Bitterness, sourness, etc., are supposedly to us poisonous. So we try to
Yes.
avoid them. Not just us, but mostly most animals.
Hmm.
If you kill, they have a certain taste thing. So that's biological. Yes, exactly. And I can't explain why I biologically, honestly, I'm here. I'm being honest. I can't explain why meat itself tastes so good. Fat, sugars, and salt taste so good. I can't explain it. It is biological. Yes, absolutely. There's no doubt there.
So
Now,
don't you think that would, excuse me for being so like passionate, but
no,
that's my culture. That's the way we talk.
no, don't apologize.
No, no, I'm just
Yeah,
making sure.
exactly. Yes,
Uh,
no. This is we're having fun. I think we're having fun, or we're
I
having a
am.
good discussion. Yes.
I am.
Uh,
So don't you think that if we have these biological imperatives to like fatty things, sugary things, salty things, then we would develop a culture to find and locate those things. But if we didn't have the biological imperatives, then we wouldn't go and try to look for meat in the first place.
No, yes, we would. That would then become biological. That would the taste is biological, but the searching is culture. I hope you can see the difference. The
Yes,
taste,
but one
yes,
is derived from the other. That's what I'm getting at. Without what, without
yes, yeah,
without one, you won't have the other one. It's not that
absolutely.
it's not
Yes,
that
yes.
it's not that your biology tells you don't
I,
eat something fatty, it's disgusting, but then you develop a culture that does it anyway, and then but your biology adapts to that.
I
That's
I
not the way
accept
it
this.
works. Yeah.
Yes, I accept this. This is
Okay.
perfectly. I accept this. There's no. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. No,
Okay.
we've settled. Yes, it is settled. Yes. Now we can move on to other aspects where you said about the group substituting another one. I'll give you an example from the Fertile Crescent. You live in the Fertile Crescent.
What?
The Fertile Crescent, the place where agriculture developed.
Okay, I didn't
Okay.
know that term.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was developed in the 1920s by V. Gordon Child and Louis Binford, the archaeologists. This is where agriculture developed. It goes from Anatolia down the Levant and into the Euphrates and
Euphrates.
Tigris area. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that area. That is where agriculture developed in the western part. Because it
Mesopotamia.
also Mesopotamia, Sumeria, whatever that area. Now we know. In fact, there's been a controversy. Cheddar Man, I talked about him. I said in my video the day or the day after that the news came out, he was not as dark as the news is saying he was. He was just slightly darker, a tanned individual, not completely. It was never mind. It was stupid those articles, but we know that the end of the Mesolithic, where Cheddar Man and not just him but others lived in, they were replaced by farmers, because Cheddar Man was a hunter-gatherer. They were replaced by farmers who basically wiped out the hunter-gatherers, genetically, culturally, and genetically and culturally, because that's all you can have, basically, biologically and culturally. They wiped them out. There's about 10%, 5% of our DNA from the Mesolithic left in us.
So
Yeah.
just on a tangent, do you know the channel called Angry Slav?
Yes, yeah, I know him. Yeah,
Her.
yes, her, yes, her.
Yeah, you'd probably like her because she's an archaeologist.
Hmm.
And she made a video about Cheddar Man.
Yeah, I did. Many people did, and most of them are correct. I think everyone that made on YouTube that made a video on Cheddar Man, except JF, he got it totally wrong. But never mind.
Like most of the times, yeah.
Exactly. The actual archaeologists who talked about Cheddar Man got it right. That is correct. Now, the first farmers who replaced Cheddar Man were then replaced by the Belbeca folk. And that was a mix of biology and culture. In fact, I'll show you how the culture surpassed the biology, or in Portugal, they found the oldest individual burial, the oldest skeletal remains of an individual who lived during the Belgica phase of the Iron Age, no, the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age. The metal, that was metal already, 4,500 years ago. Bronze Age, more or less. His genetic makeup, he had the Belgica culture, but his genetics was not the same as, say, the British, no, let's say the Central Europeans, and even further east of, even to where they basically originated in the Western Asia. Western Asia is the Fertile Crescent, where I just said Levant, Israel, etc., up to Iran, and north of that. That is Western Asia. It's just a little bit of a, excuse me, of a definition. That subsequent second movement of farmers replaced the other ones, and in the UK, they replaced the ones that replaced Cheddar Man. And apparently, the genetics of the Iberian person, that Portuguese idiot or cunt or whatever you want to call him, he was the same as the British ones. So, but they still all shared the same culture, the Belgica folk. And
Yeah.
so it's
Well, there are many examples where how culture supersedes biology. I can give you two
Yes.
right now. Men going their own way.
Mhm.
That's anorexia.
Yes.
I mean, there are so many examples that we can take from our
Feminism,
modern.
Marxism, or every political
So
movement.
yeah, I mean, of course, culture can be very strong. It has
Exactly.
a strong influence on our behavior.
It does, yes. And it will eventually, like, yes, I agree with you, it will eventually, both biology does affect culture. There's absolutely no doubt that it does. And culture also affects biology. They are intricately linked because of our primate.
But not all culture, though. Not all forms of culture. I mean, do we take
No,
music,
no.
for example? Is music anything to do with biology?
No, no, it doesn't. Of course, shit. Wearing shoes does not affect biology, but I'm talking about the broad sense, good fella. The broad sense that culture itself. But yeah, then you can split it down. America, black culture. Oh, we can't. The whites can't use dreadlocks. Bullshit. My people, my actual people, the ones I descended of directly, the ones that fought Rome, they had dreadlocks. So, and I descend from Celtic peoples of northern Portugal. We use bagpipes, by the way, good fella. We have bagpipes in our things. Honestly,
You're welcome. You're welcome to them.
of course. No, yeah, they are fine. I don't mind them. They spruce up the festivals and so on. We have a lot of cultural things that are linked more with the British Isles than with any other area, which I find extraordinary. It's something which I find normal because shit, I grew up in Australia, so I'm culturally British, but I'm Portuguese biologically.
Has that got a lot to do with the British Empire, though? The sun never set on the British Empire at one point.
Yeah, well, we were the first ones to do that. Portugal, the sun never set in the Portuguese Empire, then the British. Yeah, exactly. I grew up in Australia. My parents immigrated there, and I grew up with Monty Python, the Goodies. I grew up with David Attenborough. I grew up with the Queen. I honour Queen Elizabeth II, and I'm Portuguese.
I grew up with Monty Python and a lot of British humor as well.
Did you have Benny Hill, Skeptor? Did you ever get that?
Of course, yeah. I used to record it on my VHS.
Blackadder, exactly. Yes, I grew up with that as well. Well, I didn't grow
Oh,
up. I was
Benny
really
Hill.
old. Yeah,
Ben
Benny
Hill.
Hill. Benny
Yeah.
Hill.
Well, that's because we had only one TV channel until 1990, and they brought a lot of shows from abroad. Some of them from Britain. Are You Being Served? Yes, Prime Minister,
Yes.
and all
All of
that.
them wouldn't. All of them wouldn't be allowed today.
Yeah.
Strangely enough.
Exactly. That is why we're sort of destroying the human culture, because we are not allowing things that were part of us. Humor. That humor was brilliant.
I think
It's still there. I think it's the minority that's spoiling it, to be honest.
I think that independent TV producer manufacturers like Netflix or something like that would eventually come up with shows that would recreate that kind of humor, that kind of television. I mean, there is a big audience for that, no question. And because it's VOD, then you can watch everything. It's not like forced on you with broadcast.
Well, we're talking about things like Benny Hill. I mean, he had like scantily clad women running around all the time, and
so many sex jokes. And
but I'm saying that wouldn't be allowed today. But Friends has been put on Netflix recently in Britain, and it's been getting loads of complaints, you know, for being transphobic, homophobic, and all. And this is Friends. This is one of like the mildest sitcoms there is.
Actually, this creates a new. You need to look for an opportunity in every problem. This is like, if you're going to create a alternative Netflix with those kind of shows, you'll get a lot of audience for that, if you ask me. Because people are starving for that kind of entertainment.
They are being. We are being a negative part of what's the word in Portuguese? The drowning of culture in the Western world.
Well, you say we, but I think it's a very loud minority that's spoiling it for everybody else.
I agree.
But they have when I say we, they have the power, people in power to enforce that. Look at what happened because I'm not going to go there because it'll just trigger people and there's no need. What's happening in America? Those boycotts because of the NRA, we will not go there. I just mentioned it, but let's not go there because it's going to freak people out, and we don't need that at the moment, because both Portugal and the UK have absolute gun control.
But yet we still have shootings all the time.
We still have shootings, exactly. So and the UK has
those damn criminals. Those damn criminals just won't follow the law. What's wrong with them?
I can talk about it because I did a stream with Justicar, because he's a pro-gun advocate, and
I watched that. That was good. I liked that.
Yeah,
exactly.
And my country has gun control, and I see the reason behind gun control. But I guess the in one sentence, it's a mix between how violent is your culture mixed with the lack of gun control that is causing the problem in the United States. I mean, it's a mix of two issues. It's a complicated problem, not a. You cannot fix one without the other.
It's kind of unique for America as well. I know you don't want to talk about this, but it's kind of unique for America as well, because their country was founded with guns, and they fought for they fought against slavery with guns, and they helped us during the World War with guns. Guns are a big part of America. They had the Wild West. It's in their blood. It's different for us. It's not in our blood the way it is in America. You know, our countries weren't founded with guns. Theirs was. You know, and
let me put an asterisk on that, because my country was founded with guns.
Oh God, of course, thinking that.
And every Israeli had handled an M16 or an Uzi a few years in his life, and still we are not fanatic about guns.
No, but is it not true? A lot of people have been. you get a lot of rhetoric, right, and it's hard to know what to believe. So you can tell me, Skeptor, you're in Israel, right? Is it true that a lot of teachers are armed
In Israel? No,
in Israel?
no.
It's not true. Because
No.
people are saying there was a school shooting in Israel in 1978 or something. So they trained and armed the teachers, and
No.
there hasn't been, and there's only been 2 school shootings since, and the teachers shot the terrorists.
I grew up. I never saw a teacher wearing a gun except one time, because the teacher was living in the occupied territories in a very, very dangerous area surrounded by Arab villages, and those guys. And he was an army officer or something. So those guys are usually
So
handling. Yeah.
This is just fake news then. This is basically fake news.
Not
just
in,
getting back.
Well, yeah, but let's go on. Yeah.
Just getting back to the foundation. My country was founded with a sword, and the father, the son beating, slapping his mother. Basically, we were founded way before guns were available, Portugal. But we did have British help, so yes, or English help, and that's just cultural. And just so history is vindicated, it was not the Portuguese that actually expelled the Jews from Portugal. It was because of imposition from the Spanish. And I hate the Spanish, the Castile, not the Castile, not the whole country Spain, because the northern part of where I live, Galicia, they're like us, they're Portuguese and
So-
they're Celtic as well. So yeah.
So if you're in the World Cup, who's your main rivals as Portugal? Who's your main rivals? Spain.
Spain,
Definitely, right,
absolutely.
okay. And is it the same? Is it the same the other way around?
Oh, they hate us. Oh, God, they fucking hate us. Spain absolutely hates us because we beat them in about 3 times in 3 major battles. And Barcelona, well, the Catalans.
What's your home team?
Benfica.
Then
Oh,
we
Benfica,
beat you.
okay.
We beat you 3-0.
Well,
And-
I'm not. Yeah, no problems.
You remember that?
Yeah,
You remember
yes, I
that?
do.
You came to Israel and took, and what were you got?
3-0. No,
Skeptor's quite proud of this.
shit. It was in our dark past and so on. Shit, we were beaten 7-1 by Celtic.
Glasgow.
From, no. From north of here, Vigo, Celta de Vigo.
Oh, Celta
Celta
Vigo.
de Vigo.
So that's really bad past. So fuck. But the Spanish hate Portugal. Not the Spanish. The Castilians hate Portugal, and that's because shit in 15th century. We had a major battle of our independence. It was the Battle of Aljubarrota. One of our best generals, his name was Nuno Alvares Pereira, who was his constable of John I of Portugal, who would become later John I. He had a small, about half or a third of the soldiers, the military compared to Spain, and we gave them an absolute beating. So yeah, and they hate us for that still. But anyway,
Let bygones be bygones. Water under the.
I'm fine with Spain. They hate us. I don't like them much. Castile. I love Spain itself.
It's nice to have a country that you can hate. I mean, it's nice.
When I say hate, I don't mean not
It makes
like,
your life whole.
A friendly rivalry.
Yeah,
friendly
exactly.
rivalry, yes. Because as I was growing up in high school in Australia, I had a love-hate relationship with the Greeks.
It's like Germans and Belgians, I guess.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
Germany's
Holland?
main rivals are Holland. Aye.
No,
And
wait. Who is it?
England's Scotland's main rivals are England. England's main rivals are Germany. Germany's main rivals are Holland. You know, I think Holland is the same for Germany. Their main rivals are Germany as well.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
but their
team they really want to.
rivals,
You know, they always want to beat.
In football, I hate Portuguese football. By the way. Even though I love Benfica, I hate Portuguese football. I hope it ends which is the most corrupt country on earth. Do you know what the political propaganda and bullshit that's happening in the UK, the United States, America, Canada, Australia, etc. on the politics? We apply that propaganda bullshit to football because our politics is fucking boring.
Read the group chat, the private group chat.
What? Who said something?
No, not the chat, the public chat, the group chat.
Oh.
So
We can end it now if you like, or a question and answer.
you want?
Yes.
Yeah, people are asking questions, so let's take a
Okay.
few questions from the audience. Let's give them like 30 seconds to catch
Okay,
up.
people who ask questions. You guys, if you want an answer, well, I'm fine. I can answer some. I know it's late for you, Skeptor. Yeah, and
Yeah, and wife needs some attention too.
exactly, absolutely. That's the most important thing.
Wives always need attention.
Yeah. So,
Unless when they want to be alone for a bit, that's when you.
Any questions?
That's a
video
shit
games.
test. That's a shit test. When they say they want to be alone, they want to see if you're going to go, aye, okay. You're supposed to say, no.
That's actually the arrangement we have here. Everyone needs private time.
So, come on, people in the chat. Any questions you want to ask us?
I think there are. They just need to catch up. It takes if like a minute for them to catch up. There is.
I'm looking at the emojis. I'm looking at the emojis in the chat here, and there's no flags. What happened to the flags? Were they offensive or something? That's weird, man. I bet you it was offensive.
I don't know who's this Greek or Cyrillian language person. He's a good person. I can't remember his name. He asked
That's
me.
Greek. That's Greek.
Greek, yeah. The language.
That
Let's
looks like
say. That's for you. He asks opinion on Netanyahu.
Well, that must be for me. I'll take this.
Okay, opinion on Netanyahu. Go ahead.
No, I'll go for it, man. I'll let you. I'll let you talk.
Well, there are good things and bad things you can say about the guy. I mean, he's corrupt as hell. There is no question about this. I mean, there is a comparison between his wife and Marie Antoinette. She is insane, and when I listen to Paul Elam saying "Don't marry a bipolar person," I'm straight immediately. I think about his wife. She's completely nuts. I mean textbook nuts. You don't know the half of it. She's a maniac, and she apparently wants a lot of free stuff, and Netanyahu is providing, a lot of free stuff for their family. We're talking about thousands and thousands of pounds in ice cream, in all sorts of stuff. I don't want to go into details. Having that said, he's being corrupt. He's not he's an okay prime minister, I guess. I mean, I like some of the policies he's putting out there.
Is there term limits? Is there term limits? Because he seems to have been there for ages.
Yeah, he's like for 12 years now straight.
So can he be there until like forever, pretty much until?
I don't think so, because now there are like 4 or 5 indictments that he's going to face probably in trial soon for bribery.
Say there was none of that. Is there a term limit?
Yeah, no, there's no limit.
All right, okay.
Why is that type of corruption a bad thing? Honestly,
that's a good question. I mean, I would prefer a prime minister that knows how to run a state properly and be as corrupt as hell than like a honest guy that is like incapable of running a state. But the problem is the problem that is not just Bibi. That's his like nickname. The problem is like half of his ministers are half-wits. Some of them are okay. Some of them are actually good people, but some of them are seriously half-wits. And when I'm talking half-wits, think of a party guy. I don't know, like a moron or someone who is very ignorant, not ignorant, but like
Michael
unknowledgeable.
Rowlands. Steve Shives.
Unknowledgeable. How do you say it? I forgot the word.
Ignorant.
Ignorant.
Moron.
Yeah. Some people are so ignorant in the government, but
a block of stone.
Yeah.
We have them here.
Our culture minister is one of the most how do you say it in English?
Idiot. An idiot.
No, but also a very someone who doesn't have any culture, like very rude and
a Philistine.
Yeah, you know, she's very vulgar. I mean, and
a chav.
Yeah,
a bogan, a chav.
And vulgar mostly. Very vulgar. A very uncultural person, and she's the minister of culture.
Yeah. Uncouth. That's Beach Price is saying uncouth. That's a good one. Aye.
Any other questions? Did we?
There's one for me from Davey. He asked me, "Do you think that genetics plays a lot in ethnicities?" Of course it does. That's why there are differences in human groups. They're just very small, minute genetic differences that give you ethnicities. The skin color goes from complete white in the north to very, very dark in the south, in the equator, because of the sun, and not just that, other factors, sexual selection, etc. There are so many factors, and genetics plays into that. Yes, there are genetics do play into ethnicities and groups, etc. Yes.
See, I feel I should like apologize, kind of, because this is like not my field. Do you know what I mean? When you're talking about like cavemen and shit like that. I know some of it, but I just don't know a lot. I'm no expert, and I feel like kind of maybe out my depth a bit in this subject.
My knowledge of all of those stuff came from a cartoon TV show we had on Channel 1, the only channel back in the 80s. It's actually European, I think.
Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. That was actually
a
good.
Great show. I used to rewatch it again and again.
Scientifically, that was very, very good.
And it was accurate. You remember that, good fella?
No, I'm asking, was it accurate?
Yes, it was.
Fairly accurate.
Accurate enough for that time. We have learned, obviously, from since then. But yes. And
it was funny. There was this big fat guy and a skinny guy, and they were the good guys. Then there was the bad guy and a small bad guy. He was like the Jew of the series. It was like, yes, let's steal those sheep. And then the fat guy would punch him in the face. It was very funny. It was hilarious.
I didn't ask you guys on because of your expertise in archaeology. I respect you guys have more knowledge of other things, which gave this stream some meat, as I would call it, because archaeology is just about humans, but there is modern things, of course. And and I expect people to ask me questions about my field, like I asked other people questions about other fields, and so on. Yeah. So basically that. So we can end it now if you guys want.
That would be fine.
I'm happy.
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming on, and till next time.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure having both of you on.